Okay, this time let's choose William. Calling him a friend is once too little and too much. What is he doing here? He sits close to the wall, bloodlessly pale. Attired in a tweed suit I've never seen him in before. Still, in the way of statues, he's looking my way. Though subtly, unwilling to be caught. Look away, Florian. I saw my eyes snapping to the floor again. Good. A shiver runs down my neck. William's mouth hasn't moved. I realize with cold horror that his voice vibrates smoothly, crystal clear in my head. A rustle follows. I will take him, whatever else they might be. A well-trained thin blood can be of use. His voice I hear with my ears. Tomas Vey. My Nosferatu acquaintance, crypt protector, da-da-da-da. Now listen, say that Mr. Vey knew of you and did not denounce you. Though he has better standing than I, discredit him and I may step in instead. My heart drums erratically. Funny how that still happens. Very well then, Florian, Mayor, the prince calls. What is your answer? I look up and remember. Before I remembered William, now I want to remember Tomas. I want to see if this is a different situation. My head strikes the alley wall and I discover I'm still human enough for my vision to wide out. Okay, this is different. I blink against the pain. Do I go limp? Take the beating? Do I try and struggle free? The hands of two anarchs are like vices in my biceps as they shake me. Escaping this seems unlikely now. I'd known I was taking a chance going behind their backs. I just didn't expect to be found out this quick. One of them, Lyderk, gives me another hard shove. Thought you could screw us, huh? Thought you could cut us out and get away with it. You must think we're stupid or something. Got anything to say for yourself before we take your head, you little abortion? Remain silent. Turn my head and spit blood, but don't say a damn thing. They won't believe me if I try to lie, and Lyderk and his crony already are going to kill me. Shows of defiance are useless. And no one's here to witness it but me. I brace for more pain. Death will probably hurt even when I'm already halfway there. But instead I hear a new voice. Well, 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 what do we have here? This isn't your domain, boys, it's mine. The new voice is warm, gravelly, but pleasant. I don't recognize it, but the anarchs are roughing me up must. They exchange looks before speaking in turn, ugly smiles on their faces. Stay out of this, Tomas. It doesn't concern you. We'll just handle things with this cheating little run-off and be out of your way again. Anyway, two of us, one of you. I wouldn't like those odds if I was you. There's a soft, sharp sound, someone snapping their fingers. Now I can see a figure at the end of the alley, silhouetted against the streetlights. Tomas? He speaks again. Count again, boys. Whatever they see, it's enough to make the anarchs drop me. I slide down the wall and sit on the filthy pavement, feeling the back of my skull for injuries. When I look up again, they're gone. They're gone, and the figure at the end of the alley is in front of me instead. He looks down at me from a face, gnarled and bird-like, eyes glimmering strangely, and he smiles. What do we have here? Stray, lost and wandering. Tomas holds out his hand to help me up. His fingers end in curved claws. Take his hand. Reach out and accept the help, finding myself hauled to my feet with surprising strength, for someone that skeletally thin. His skin is cool and unpleasant, and I get a whiff of something vaguely rotten as I catch my balance. He pats my shoulders like he's trying to be comforting. The smell doesn't help with that. There we go, you're all right. Just a bit bruised up. Got a name for me to call you? I surely won't be calling you what our friends did. Tomas Vey at your service. I half expect him to sweep a bow, but he just waits for an answer. Looking from side to side, I see other figures in the alley. All of them as twisted, strange as Tomas. Nosferatu. I look back at my rescuer warily. Florian, how do you know I needed help? Tomas laughs, a hoarse croak like an owl's cry. He puts an arm over my shoulder and starts leading me away, pointing at the camera's glassy eye. I hadn't even noticed it until then. I guess that's the point. I keep an eye on things around here. Now shall we talk business? You managed to make those two very angry. How industrious of you. I could use some of that sort of initiative. This is how I begin working for him. After that I worked for Tomas for months. What did he have for me tonight? The room was dark, except for a pool of amber from the expensive Tiffany lamp spilled across the old polished wood of the desk. Tomas sits in half shadow and half light. In chiaroscuro, it makes his gaunt face seem even sharper. Push the folder across the desk. Is this the same as before? No, recite quickly. This is the same as what it was before. Okay. I wonder if that beginning meaning is the only thing that's different, to be honest. Right, okay, so this time, I think the only difference was, like, how we first, it shows us how we first met those guys, and then we just sort of, like, when it went to the scene with William, it did have, like, a really brief thing. It was like, oh, William took me to a nice meal when I was starving once, and that was basically it. Announce Tomas and choose William. This is gonna be hard. Alright, I look at Tomas, inscrutable, confident, thinking himself in control of the situation. He gives no hint of nerves as he stands waiting for the outcome. It is aggravating. Tomas Vey has known me for about 4 months, both that I'm thin-blooded and that I'm undeclared. He has kept his secret, intentionally breaking Camarilla rules so he could continue to exploit me. Tomas looks at me, startled, and from the other side of the room, William stands and moves forward, stepping to the silence left in the wake of my accusation. He bows formally. William Harley, child of the Ulan Brighton of Cortum Mithras, and Scylla of Clan Toreador of the 10th generation. With your grace, your majesty, I will offer myself as an alternative. I renew my old loyalty to the Camarilla and its traditions, and will remove myself to whichever neighborhood in which your majesty cares to give me domain. The pale oval of the prince's face sharpens slightly with interest as she looks between the three of us, and hear a quiet murmur from the assembled audience, courtly intrigue, their favorite entertainment. A serious accusation, Tomas Vey of the Nosferatu. How do you answer this charge? The moment of surprise having passed, I can almost watch Tomas marshals his wits. He smiles at the prince, charming as ever, and gestures nonchalantly. Easily, your majesty, I will admit to having bent certain rules where young Florian is concerned, but I had my reasons, and they are good ones. An unbranded thin blood is a rare asset of great worth and intelligence in gathering. Due to his efforts on the Camarilla's behalf, I have procured information about the insurgent group called the Voice of the Blood, which has prevented an attack upon the Tower Blood's trade supply lines. I watch the display, wetting my lips. The way Prince Anastasia looks at Tomas is sharp, dangerously close to reproach. William turns to him, his expression mild. I dare say, Mr. Vey, that you didn't bend the rules so much as break them. Quite the admission of guilt. Tomas's answering look is just as mild, even unconcerned. He knows something. I have seen this before. Of course he does. I told him about William. I would not think a kindred who feeds with such dubious concern for the niceties of the masquerade has any leg to stand upon when it comes to breaking rules, Mr. Harley. There is quite a certain house in Buda where they know you quite well there. Is there not? I hear you might even ask politely. Titters of laughter rise upon the audience, and the prince's sharp look swings to William now. It's nothing short of impressive how William doesn't look startled, despite the moment of silence. You've never heard of blood dolls, Mr. Vey? Or a herd? For a moment I think William will pull it off, but Tomas is just as smooth and in control of his presentation of arguments. Oh gosh, I basically did the same answers as I did before, which meant that I did tell Tomas about meeting William. So, this might end very badly for me. Of course we have, Mr. Harley. Sadly for you, my informants tell me what you have is neither. Your Majesty, an utter kiss who has never before come into your court, who has little no concern for our hallowed traditions. Is this really who ought to be given the guardianship of a branded thin blood? My loyalty is known and tested. I will apologize for the breach of minor rules, but I think my results stand for themselves. I am your elder by at least a century, Mr. Vey. If not more, my concerns in this court. Very well, that is enough. Prince Anastasia's voice doesn't resound like that of a woman in the library, standing next to her. Quieter though it is, it still cuts through any further protest. William even turns to her and lowers his head with perfect etiquette. Tomas, too, adds nothing further. The prince seems pleased enough by the show of deference. She turns her eyes coolly between the two men. Your age and participation in the early days of this court are noted, Mr. Harley. So is the rest. Please sit down. A knot of fear uncurls on me, and I shiver while William steps back, without ever turning his shoulders to the prince. He sits again, completely silent and straight-backed, his legs crossed. Prince Anastasia turns to Tomas, her mouth twitches. We shall have a word, Mr. Vey, but for now follow Mr. Korvax to the other room. A man with trim beard and an air of satisfied dignity stands and smooths down his suit jacket. He gives Tomas a nod. My pleasure, your majesty. Now come, we have all this sorted in no time. The Scourge grabs me by the shoulder, and I hear William's voice whisper to me one last time. I'm sorry, boy. She manhandles me away with surprising ease. Oh. So I'm still owned by Tomas because I told the Nosferatu. About him. I gotta deal with this issue now. Ugh. I have a feeling that the Nosferatu is going to be... I'm gonna say not my hand, but Tomas is going to say put it on his hand. The wrist. Strap the chair. Yep. It hurts. It hurts a lot. Tomas leads the way into a confusing labyrinth of concrete staircase and dimly lit access tunnels beneath the palace. Eventually, these passageways, I think I've read this, what I tried. What are you gonna do with me now? Look, they'll call it betrayal. I call it survival. Oh yeah. I would think he'd understand. Out of all my possible questions, one rises to the top. Are you gonna bloodbound me now? Tomas's laugh is cold, his eyes shine as he looks back at me, uncanny in the half-darkness. I have more important kindred than you to keep safely bonded. But if that stunt you pulled, I might just consider it. I can still be useful. Tomas turns away, shoulders hunched under his jacket like mantled wings. You will be. No matter. You learned a lesson tonight, and can still be useful. The tunnels are cold and dark. And I suppose will not play piano. Oh, yeah. Because we pulled that stunt, we will not play piano again. This is the bad end. That's the bad end. Okay, so trying this again, we can choose William, but not tell Tomas about him. I think that's what it is. Okay, this is the part where I gotta lie. I only go there to hunt. I want to seem useful, but I'm not sure to tell Tomas of my own secrets, and especially not about William. Not after the help he offered me. Nosferatu like secrets far too much to be safe with them, and you never know when they might decide to use what they know. No, I go to Buddha to feed sometimes. You can find people taking out their dogs and not paying attention. Or some of the nicer neighborhoods, people might forget to lock their windows. It doesn't always pan out, but when it does, it's easy hunting. Tomas drums his fingers on the desktop, the claws making little chunks in the wood. His eyes are sharp. Buddha is not within my domain. You shouldn't hunt there, or I can't monitor you if something goes wrong. I shake my head. You must know I keep things from him. I don't think he's entirely convinced now, but at least he isn't pressing me. I have to hunt outside your domain all the time. I appreciate that you keep an eye out for me, but I go all over Budapest working for you, and you can't watch me then either. Tomas doesn't look satisfied, and he'll have to be. I wouldn't be certain of that if I were you. I do have my ways, just be careful, Florian. I invested a lot of time and resources into you, and keep working on the voice. Now, was there anything else tonight? This is the part where I drink his blood or something, I guess. Why don't I be more tactful? Asking to drink in the vampire's blood isn't quite like asking to make out with them, but it's not like that either. It's really intimate, so I'm circumspect how I ask. Need my Vita. I wonder how long it would take you to ask. Oh yeah, it's basically the same as before, only slightly different. I'm gonna ask him if he knows about the voice of the blood, just because. This is both a big gamble and a risk. By his own admission, he skillfully navigates the space in between kindred and factions. I presume he could access the fringes of vampiric society too, if he wanted to. What Tomas will think of me mentioning this to William is only going to be relevant if he finds out. I shift carefully in the sofa, turning to look at the landscape of green, rolling hills. Say, since it seems you can find out things if you put your mind to it, do you know anything about a group called the Voice of the Blood? William hums as if he were looking over the headlines in the morning newspaper. A group of extremist anarchs with some strong opinions on the annihilation of sects as a concept. Camarilla, anarch movement, and you name it. Dangerous, as most extremists are, and probably holding particular views like undeath being a powerful gift or whatever they like. That was not a lot. He still speaks of his vampirism in a very blasé manner. Okay, so it's basically no different. I think I'm going to tell him I can walk in the daylight. Yeah. I shift carefully on the sofa, turning to look at a landscape of green rolling hills. Oh, this is the same sort of me before. I wonder if I can shake his truth a little by sharing something more astounding. Vampires always miss daylight, at least in stories. And I don't have to make it sound real, only suggested. What would you say if I tell you that I can walk in the sun? Something very close to a smirk tugs at his mouth, even if it doesn't look up. Really? I would say that so can I. I blink. Now he looks up. It's a joke. His eyes remain on me, holding a rare glimmer of curiosity. Can you? I confirm. Perhaps I can let this one go. You must have wondered after all how I can survive in the streets all the time we met. The sky was this close to pinking. Yes, actually, though this whole curse situation works for me. It is decided I don't burn in daylight. William arches an eyebrow briefly, then it makes a small, fascinated sound. Is that his whole reaction? Do you miss that? My probing gives him pause, and I wet my lips in silence. Not particularly. All I miss is the lack of natural light for painting. I release a breath. Is it all this easy for you? It makes him snort softly. Some things are easy, I suppose, others less so. Much like during my living days back in London. Oh yeah, and then this goes back to what I've read before. Okay. Denounce Thomas and choose William. Blah blah blah. Pale over the crisp, sharpened slightly. Okay. I can almost watch Tomas's marshal his witch. He smells the prince charming as ever and gestures nonchalantly. Easily, I will admit to having bent to certain rules. There are good reasons. Unbranded thin blood is a rare asset of great worth in intelligence gathering. I dare say, Mr. Vay, you wouldn't bend the rules so much as break them. Quite the admission of guilt, I will add. You are hardly the only one to have the information on the voice of blood. And the group disavows even the anarch movement and its borderline independent, which makes its movements traceable with my experience in such areas. Mr. Meyer would be valuable if he can be directed under my guidance. Tomas's answering look is just as mild, though it turns toward him with a glimmer of calculation. It has been said that it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. My results in the matter speak for themselves, and while young Florian was not branded, he was under my direct oversight during the entirety of the investigation. Your Majesty, I will apologize for the breach of minor rules and assure you it will keep working for our safety. My loyalty is known and tested. It cannot be said for the anarchist who has never been before come into your court. I am your elder by at least a century, Mr. Vay. If not more, make not so many assumptions about me in this court. Thomas's eyes narrow. An anarchist who knew Florian before tonight as well. My chest clenches with glowing distress. Of course he had me followed. William again doesn't miss a beat. As a declared kindred, not an unbranded thin blood, was the lie your instruction, Mr. Vay? Tomas has no time to answer, though he opens his mouth. Very well, that is enough. Prince Anastasia's voice doesn't resound like that of the woman in the library standing next to her. Quieter though it is, it still cuts through any further protest. William turns to her and lowers his head with perfect etiquette. Tomas, too, adds nothing further. The prince seems pleased enough by the show of deference. She turns their eyes coolly between the two men. Your efforts in the service of my court are noted and appreciated, Mr. Fair, but we shall have a word about this. Please sit down. A knot of fear uncurls in me, and I shiver while Tomas nods stiffly and sits down. He's not going to let this one go easily. Prince Anastasia turns to William, regarding him critically. Renewed loyalty, is it? William nods and turns to a man with a trimmed beard sitting to the prince's left with an air of satisfied dignity. I will call upon the esteemed keeper of this Elysium, Mr. Gorgi Korvax, and the boons he owes me from my earlier time in the Camarilla, registered in London before its fall. If Mr. Korvax cares to honor them, I ask to be granted a small but fair domain. The man in question stands, clearing his throat and smoothing down his suit. It is ever my pleasure to ensure that our customs are respected. The prince flaps the thin white hand. It will be discussed, but now follow Mr. Korvax to the other room. The squirts grabs me by the shoulder. She manhandles me away. This is what we have seen before. I speak up. Not the hand. Not the hands. the nape of the neck. I breathe out with private relief. And then, yeah. And that always sucks. William leads me into the corridors of the palace, descending towards street level. On the stairs, he stops and turns to me. I can barely see his eyes in the penumbra, and his hand is pale and spidery. He lifts it up to my cheek for a second. It's cool against my skin, a welcome change for the night. Then he moves away, and we walk into the lobby. The same doorman who greeted the scourge now greets him, opening the door. Now, like then, I'm only nods with a silent look. We pass underneath the main arch and exit into the Andrassy Avenue. I glance up at the elegant gray stones of the facade, and turn and trail behind him, hurting and stunned. Too many questions jam in my brain. Will I have to continue my investigation on the voice of the blood for the Camarilla? Will Tanask come look for me? How had the Camarilla found out about me in the first place? Someone must have told them, but who and why? Was it William? I watch him pause on the sidewalk, adjusting his tie in silence. Why did you help me? I halt next to him. I would call for a taxi, but I don't have a phone on me, and William doesn't use one. And I suspect he doesn't know how. That leaves us with walking, taking a bus or the underground. The idea of the latter makes my stomach simmer with anxiety. Frankly, Tomas should have expected this. After all, he first met me because I backstabbed someone else. They call it betrayal, I call it survival. Why do you do this? Step in for me. William's eyebrows rise slightly. Why not, Florian? That's not an answer. You traded the freedom you enjoyed for what? What do you want from this? My freedom for your life seems a fair bargain. Only one of the two can be regained, and you may even share in it. And perhaps I have a type of people who are in desperate need of help and whose pride will not suffer the shame of asking for it. And breathe in. Too tired to insist on bitter answers or to argue against him, I release a breath and wet my lips. Perhaps he takes pity on me, moving to my side and placing a hand on my back. I tense up and relax. Come, boy, let's get moving. The waning crescent moon carved into my neck throbs and aches. I suppose it always will. Cars glide down the avenue, passing in and out of pools of streetlight. At this hour of night, the road is more lively than a sidewalk. William and I walk alone. Under our feet, there's a whole other world hidden beneath the city. I never even suspected it might exist before becoming half a monster and being dragged into the world of darkness. I'm only half part of this world too, but there's no longer any way to escape it. I've made my choices, and now I have to live with them. Actually, this is a better ending, I feel. Best ending. Side with William. This was fun. The music is kind of nice too. This was a really fun thing. I'm glad for the glossary because I learned new things too. And I hope you will join me on whatever it is in next play. Bye-bye.